Welcome to Le Podcast de Philippe. This time, we're doing a deep dive into how technology is changing politics in 2025.
hmm
We're going to hear from some experts and news articles and even see what AI thinks about the future of politics. So let's jump right in. On se pose la question sur comment la technologie pourrait influencer la politique. What are your thoughts on how, big tech figures are trying to shape political outcomes?
It's super interesting to see how people like Elon Musk are using their tech influence to affect
Yeah,
politics.
his support for Trump's reelection. It kind of makes you think about the whole tech rate thing, like how their money and platforms can really change the balance of power.
It's definitely not just about individuals, though. I mean, look at how fast AI is becoming part of military strategy around the world. Israel using it for targeted operations, and Ukraine having AI drones are just a couple of examples.
Yeah, and that brings up so many ethical and legal questions, like what happens to human control over force when the military is all AI?
Yeah, it's a tough question with no easy answers. And it's not just on the battlefield. AI is changing the information we see online, too. Algorithms are creating these echo chambers on social media, basically feeding us our own personalized version of reality.
It's almost like everyone's stuck in their own little information bubble, making it even harder to have any real political discussion.
Right, and now democracies are trying to figure out how to regulate these platforms. They want to fight misinformation and manipulation without limiting free speech. It's a tough balancing act.
It is, and as if navigating the digital world in our own countries wasn't hard enough.
Yeah.
We've got this global tech race going on between the U.S. and China.
Totally. That rivalry to control things like AI, semiconductors, and quantum computing is changing global alliances. It could even force countries to pick sides and become dependent on one superpower or the other for tech. It really changes things on a global scale, with countries potentially having to rely on the tech of one superpower or the other.
Yeah, it seems like this tech is changing everything. Where do you think it'll have the biggest impact, good or bad?
That's a good question. I think one of the biggest double-edged swords is how AI changes political discussion and how much people participate.
Right. I can see how AI tools could create even more echo chambers and divide us politically. But how could we use them to make democracy better?
Well, that's what we need to figure out. Sure, those risks are there, but AI can also empower people and change how we take part in democracy. Like imagine AI platforms that help people cut through all the noise and have real discussions, or AI tools that make it easier for people to hold their elected officials accountable.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. So AI could actually help people connect and be more informed and engaged. But wouldn't that mean we have to trust the technology itself and the people who create it?
Absolutely. Transparency, accountability, ethics, they all have to be at the forefront of any AI development in politics. We have to make sure this technology is used to benefit everyone.
This conversation has really made me realize how important it is to know the potential downsides as tech gets more integrated into our political systems.
I agree. It's not just about the tech itself. It's about the power it creates and how we as citizens deal with this new reality.
You mentioned AI being used in disinformation campaigns like during elections. Can you talk about that a bit more?
Sure, AI-generated fake news and deepfakes are getting really good and hard to spot. Imagine not being able to trust what you see or hear online because AI might have made it up. That makes it really hard to make good choices during elections.
That's kind of scary. It
Yeah.
feels like we need to be really careful about what we believe online and come up with ways to fight this kind of AI manipulation.
Exactly. We need to be media literate, critical thinkers, and involved citizens. We need to question what we see online and not believe everything that sounds good.
And that leads to another thing we've touched on, the rise of hyper-personalization in campaigns.
It's wild, right? AI and big data are used to analyze our online behavior and tailor political messages to our interests and biases.
So it's not just about seeing different ads. We're basically getting totally different versions of reality based on what algorithms think we want.
Exactly. And this micro-targeting can create even more isolated bubbles, dividing us even more along political lines.
Which raises questions about how much power we're giving to these algorithms and the companies that control them.
We need to be asking tough questions about who controls these algorithms and how we can make sure they're being used transparently and ethically for political purposes.
This has been so insightful. It feels like we've just scratched the surface of how technology is shaping politics in 2025.
Yeah, and as technology keeps changing so fast, these issues are only going to get more complicated and important.
So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you want our listeners to think about?
If I had to pick one, it would be to be an active and informed participant in this digital age. Don't just take in information, question it, challenge it, and engage with it critically. The future of our democracies might actually depend on it.
We're at a crazy point in history with all this technology, and
Yeah.
it's changing everything, especially politics.
It really is a turning point, you know? The choices we make now about how we use this tech, they're going to have huge consequences down the road.
You've talked a lot about how important it is to be informed and active in this digital world. So what can people actually do to make sense of it all?
Well, I think it starts with being a little skeptical of everything you see online.
Yeah.
Don't just take it all at face value, you know?
Yeah.
Do your own research, check the sources, and be aware that things can be biased or even manipulative.
Yeah, it seems like everything online is designed to get our attention
Wow.
and make us react emotionally.
Exactly. We got to learn to take a step back, think critically, and really analyze information before we share it. And we got to be aware of our own bubbles and try to get different perspectives.
So we need to be like digital detectives, sorting through everything and figuring out what's real and what's fake.
I like that analogy. It's all about being smarter with the information we consume and
Right.
realizing that not everything we see online is actually true.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. It's really clear that technology is changing politics in a huge way,
Hmm.
and we all have to figure out how to deal with it.
Absolutely. It's all about learning, adapting, and being critical of the tech that's shaping our world.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. It's been a real pleasure having you on Le Podcast de Philippe.
It was my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of tech and politics. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can hit 1,000 subscribers. Your support means a lot and helps us keep bringing you these interesting conversations. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.